Don't kill me! Don't kill me, man!
I'm not going to kill you. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to tell all your friends about me.
What are you?
I'm Nerdy Somethings. Welcome to the official Nerdy Somethings podcast. I'm your host, Rob Flanoy. Now, today is December 22nd. It's my birthday. It's also the birth and launch of this podcast and the website nerdysomethings.com. So please go check out the website, like, share, subscribe to the podcast, all that stuff. Now, aside from it being my birthday, it's also the holidays where random Christmas movies you forgot you absolutely loved for the past 11 months start popping up on TV. And to me, Christmas movies are like songs. You know, when you listen to a song and it takes you back to a very specific moment in your life. For example, the song Where the Party At by Jagged Edge came out in 2001. Now, the first time I went to New York City was in 2001. My cousin Jono and I were walking through Times Square. We came upon an event where there was a press line taking pictures and all these celebrities were coming in and out of this building. We walked right into the press line and no one said anything. After a few minutes, the group, Jagged Edge, leaves the event and starts walking towards this waiting limo. I shout, "Hey, Jagged Edge!" They turn and look at me. I say, "Where the party at?" There was like a 2-second pause. They all started laughing, then piled into the limo and took off without telling us where the party was at. Anyways, Christmas movies. They take me back to very specific moments in my life. Some of those moments have had a major impact, while others I look back and just think, why was I such a weirdo? I wanted to discuss a few of these movies with you, the first of which is Home Alone. Now, I'm not going to summarize it or talk about the plot because if you haven't seen Home Alone by now, what are you doing with your life? In 1990, not only was I the same age as Kevin McAllister, 8 years old, but the release of the film coincided with my grandparents experimenting with leaving me home alone for the first time. We're not talking neglect here. They weren't flying overseas. But when my grandma decided to go back to college, there'd usually be an hour or two after I got home from school before my grandpa got home. Now, I originally loved this because I got to watch a bunch of cartoons I wasn't allowed to when my very strict, very religious grandparents were there. Why couldn't I watch these cartoons? I don't know. Maybe they were concerned with the blatant homoerotic undertones of Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers, or the ever-present displays of witchcraft presented in Disney's Gummy Bears. Either way, I was having the time of my life being home alone. That is, until Home Alone. I don't exactly remember the circumstances surrounding me getting to watch this movie, but I do remember two things. One, I absolutely loved it, and two, I immediately had a profound fear of someone breaking into my house. These temporary moments of freedom where I got to be a normal boy were suddenly overshadowed by this tremendous sense of trepidation. I started having nightmares. I'd be sitting in the living room, watching Tailspin, wishing I could sky surf, and then I'd hear the front doorknob jiggle, then stop, then jiggle some more. I'd quietly stand up, look around the corner, and what's weird is that my real-life house didn't have a window in the door, but in my dream there was, and there'd be a guy there just staring at me through this little window, smiling. I'd run to the back of the house, but by the time I got to the back door, he'd already be there, standing in the open doorway. Now, that's usually where the dream would end, and the real-life peeing in my bed would begin. Now, at 8 years old, even I knew that simply icing the front steps or strategically placing Christmas ornaments under an open window wasn't going to stop anybody. Oh no, this was real life. And real life situations called for real life solutions. And what was the solution my 8-year-old brain came up with? Knives. I hid knives everywhere. Kitchen knives, to be exact. There were knives under my bed, knives between the couch cushions, knives behind the VCR. I mean, I hid knives anywhere I thought I might happen to be when that doorknob started jiggling. And it took my grandparents a while to catch on. I'd watch my grandma getting ready to set the dining table, pulling out drawer after drawer, scratching her head and whispering to herself, where did I put all the knives? My grandpa would be vacuuming the living room, pushing it right up to the couch, and out of nowhere, that horrible sound a vacuum makes when it sucks up something metallic would start, reverberating through the house. He'd He turned the vacuum off, flip it over, spot a knife in there, and just question out loud, how'd that get in there? One day I was playing with my dog Chiquita in the backyard and they called me into the house. When I walked into the kitchen, they were both sitting at the table where a dozen knives were spread across the tablecloth. Sit down, my grandpa said. He held up a knife. It had a soggy blue tinted wooden handle. I found this in the toilet. I found most of these others in your room. What's going on? I remember crying immediately and just shrugging my shoulders. At that age, I couldn't articulate the fear. And looking back on it, I can only imagine their fear. My grandpa waved his hand over the array of knives. We're not doing this anymore, okay? I nodded. All right, go play. After that confrontation, I never did hide knives around the house again. Whenever I was left home alone, I just did what any normal person would do. Probably what I should have done all along. I just kept a kitchen knife in my hand the whole time, and whenever I'd hear the familiar roar of Grandpa's truck pulling into the driveway, I'd run it back into the kitchen. And that's what I think about whenever Home Alone comes on, how much I absolutely loved it and how afraid it made me as a child. And the great thing about being an adult is that you can look back on these childhood fears and just laugh. Another great thing about being an adult is no one can tell you where you can or can't hide your knives. I'm always ready. Anyway, second movie I want to talk about is Batman Returns. Now, this movie, like Die Hard or Lethal Weapon, falls into that weird is it or is it not a Christmas movie category. But to me, it's definitely a Christmas movie. The whole movie takes place around the holidays. There's a tree lighting ceremony, and characters are standing on snow-covered rooftops, waxing poetic about the deadliness of mistletoe. On top of all that, some of the greatest gifts I ever received as a child were directly related to Batman Returns. Now, I wrote an article on the website about how strict my grandparents were and that I didn't get to have a lot of the cool toys as a kid. That's not entirely true, but since it's Christmas, and at Christmas you tell the truth, I feel like I need to get this off my chest. As a child, I was a prolific toy thief. There was a store in Denver, Colorado called Biggs with 2 G's. It was basically like a super Walmart. There were groceries on one side, clothing in the middle, electronics in the back. Anyway, whenever I'd go grocery shopping with my grandma, I'd ask if I could go look at the toys, because even though she never bought me the toys, she was completely fine with letting me stare longingly at them. And she let me do this by myself, and when she was done doing what she had to do, she'd loop around and find me in the toy aisle, essentially window shopping. But what she didn't know was that I wasn't just window shopping, I was window shoplifting. I'd find an action figure I wanted, flip the box over in my hands, with one finger slowly start separating the plastic covering from the cardboard backing. I'd open it just enough to slide the G.I. Joe or Robin Hood Prince of Thieves action figure out of the top and slip it into my pocket. Then I'd go to the next aisle, just wait for my grandma to come find me. I would keep all these stolen toys in the crawl space under our house and either play with them down there or take them to school with me. And I never got caught, never slipped up, until Batman Returns came out. I was invited by a friend of the family to go see Batman Returns with them. Now, by this time, there was an ongoing discussion between my grandma and grandpa regarding how strict they were with me. My grandpa continued to be pretty hard line, while my grandma started to show a little leniency. She gave me the okay, and I got to go with Jesse and his family to the movies. Now, this irked my grandpa because, first of all, he didn't even want me to see the movie, and second of all, the rest of the year, I was just obsessed with all things Batman. It was Batman this, Catwoman that. We get to the holidays, and I'm warning my grandpa that mistletoe could be deadly if he eats it. He'd say, "Who told you that?" I'd say, "Batman." One night, my grandma comes home from school. We have dinner. My grandpa goes to bed early. My grandma turns to me and says, "I got you something." "What?" I asked. She goes to her car, comes back with a black bag. Inside were 3 12-inch action figures: Batman, Catwoman, and Penguin. I couldn't breathe. It was the greatest day of my life. I'm literally hugging these action figures to my chest when I hear my grandpa yell, "Bedtime!" from down the hall. I give my grandma another hug and kiss. I go to my room, turn off the light, hop in bed, but there was no sleeping to be had. I had 12 inches of Batman in my hands. I hopped out of bed, crept quietly to my closet, grabbed 5 of my stolen action figures I still had stashed in my backpack, laid them across my comforter, couple Ninja Turtles, couple G.I. Joes, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, and my 3 glorious 12-inch Batman Returns action figures. It was about to go down, and then my light turned on. I looked over my shoulder. It was my grandpa. "Where'd you get all these toys?" he said. I looked down at the toys. I looked back at my grandpa. I say, "Grandma?" He shook his head. He said, "Put 'em away. Go to sleep." I heard him go back to bed, and as I put the toys in my closet and hopped into my own bed, I breathed a deep sigh of relief. I mean, I technically wasn't lying. My grandma did buy me some of those toys. I mean, it was a half truth, a 3/8 truth to be exact. Either way, the faster I went to sleep, the faster I got to play with my new toys in the morning. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying my hardest to will myself to sleep, and that's when I heard my grandpa get back up. I heard him walk into the kitchen where my grandma was probably still doing her homework, and I heard him say, "We talked about buying him toys like that." "Relax," my grandma answered. "He loves Batman. All he talks about is Batman." "I don't care," my grandpa shot back. "They're not appropriate, and you're going to spoil him with how many toys you keep buying him." I heard my grandma sigh. "He's not going to get spoiled because of 3 lousy dolls, Rick." "3 lousy dolls?" my grandpa shot back. "He has like 10 dolls in there I've never seen before." "10? I don't know where you got 10 from." That's when I heard the footsteps come back down the hall. My grandpa burst into my room, flipped the light on. "Where are the toys?" he said angrily. I pointed at my closet. He quickly pulled them all out. By this time, my grandma was standing in the doorway. She pointed to the Batman Returns figures. "I got him those. I've never seen those other toys." My grandpa turned to me. "Where'd you get these?" I couldn't answer. I mean, I could barely breathe. I started crying, my go-to at the time. "Answer me. Are these Jesse's toys? Did you take these from Jesse?" I shook my head. He got right in my face, held up the contorted bodies of Storm Shadow, Roadblock, Donatello. "Where'd you get 'em?" "Biggs? You stole these from Biggs?" I nodded. My grandma shook her head, disappointed, left the room. I proceeded to get the worst whooping of my life. Next day, my grandpa took me to the customer service desk at Biggs, had them call the store manager, and made me confess my crimes. They chose not to press charges. And I never saw the Batman toys again until months later when I moved back with my mom and I found them stashed away in one of my moving boxes. For the last movie, I want to skip ahead a bit, end on a positive note. Well, a more positive note. The year 2003, the film Love Actually. Now, before you nerds hightail it out of here at the mere thought of a love story that doesn't involve elves or fraternal twins, I want to let you know that there is a geeky connection to all of this. Okay, so anyway, winter 2003, I was about midway through my 4th year of college, junior college. You're not supposed to stay there that long, but I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life, so I was sort of treading water. I was taking a screenwriting class and had absolutely fallen in love with the craft before I even knew that being a young Southern California 20-something who wanted to write screenplays was a cliche career path. At that time, I was obsessed with Kevin Smith, and the script I was working on, Frail Facades of Morality, was largely inspired by him. Fun fact, you can find my name in the Clerks 2 credits because Kevin ran a promo at the time where he included people's names who added him on MySpace. Anyway, so around Christmas, some female friends of mine invited me to go to the movies with them. When I met up with them at the theater, I found out we were all watching Love Actually. Are you kidding me? A formulaic, cheesy rom-com manipulating viewers by capitalizing on the joy of Christmas? Apparently, none of them were as curious as I was about the circumstances surrounding Tom Cruise being the last samurai. So we watched Love Actually, and it was magical. I mean, I told my friends it was alright, but then I immediately went home, Googled writer-director Richard Curtis, proceeded to look up everything he's ever done. This guy wrote Notting Hill, 4 Weddings and a Funeral, co-created Mr. Bean. So next month, when I decided to be even more cliche and quit school to focus on writing, the writing I focused on happened to be a romantic comedy heavily influenced by this British guy. Then about 6 months later, after sending the script out, getting 100 rejection letters, I get a call from a British woman, from a British production company, asking if the rights were still available. Heck yeah, they were. Within months, I was in London doing rewrites for an actual film producer. By the way, my day job at the time? Disneyland custodian. Did the movie ever get made? No. But I did get a sweet trip overseas, and when I came back home, I bought a midnight blue Audi TT with the money I made from the rewrites. Wise decision? Yes. Anyway, I said there was a geeky connection to all this, and here it is. About 5 or 6 years ago, my producer secured financing to make the movie, which was contingent upon securing an A-list star as one of the 2 leads. My producers attached an actor who wasn't on the A-list, he was on the B-list, but he loved the script, we loved him, but he couldn't greenlight it alone. We still needed to attach an A-list actress. After about 2 years of searching and pitching, they finally landed that A-list actress. But she didn't want to do the movie with the B-list actor. So my producers cut the B-list actor loose, and while they were looking for a new actor to satisfy the A-list actress, the A-list actress changed her mind. So now we have nobody, and the project's basically been in limbo ever since. And that A-list actress who changed her mind, she's kind of semi-retired now and doesn't really star in anything. And the B-list actor who loved the script, who we love back, who my producers had to let go because the A-list actress didn't like him, he's currently starring as a superhero in a major feature film comic book adaptation. And me, I'm a school teacher with a podcast.